Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for more than 20 years, nearly 30 now, I've been working with accounting professionals, helping them start, build, and thrive as accounting professionals, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what they're worth. It's here on this show that we actually bring on the experts to share with us a variety of things that we should at least consider as we're running our businesses, as it may relate to marketing, selling, pricing. Perhaps it's onboarding the clients. Maybe it's tech stacks. Maybe it's even more importantly, client retention. All these things matter. And what we're going to be doing is diving into those each and every week for these episodes so as to help you build the premier accounting firm and thrive. Now, with regards to today's episode, I'm excited to have on the show Mark Myers. Mark happens to be a former Marine with over 8 years of service, during which he was actually honored and distinguished or received the Distinguished Medal Medal Award and also the Robert Met Award. This is for his exceptional leadership. As a founder and CEO of TaxWise Partners, he has spent more than a decade helping thousands of clients slash their tax bills in an average of 50%. And all of this without their changing their relationships with their CPAs or financial advisors. So Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roger. I really appreciate you having me here. Excited.
This is going to be a fun thing. And honestly, we're recording this the week of independence. So I wanted to, first of all, thank you for your service.
Oh, you got it. Thank you for acknowledging, and I really appreciate you for bringing that up. It's it was a good experience to have.
Well, 8 years of your life's dedicated to more or less the principles of freedom that we all enjoy. I really do appreciate. And so thank you. And as it relates to this time of year, it's one of my favorites where we actually get to look at not only what the sacrifices of so many have been for us. And, clearly that's in line with Memorial Day weekend, but it's here that we get to celebrate our independence. And I think that's a big thing personally and as a citizen. So yeah, this is a big deal for me. So maybe we can segue into that. But for my listeners, I do want to first acknowledge your contribution to the country, but then talk about your experience as it relates to accounting. So let's jump into more or less your background as it relates to accounting services and why you got into tax.
Absolutely. That's an interesting conversation because it's rather unorthodox. I didn't get a finance degree.
Okay.
I didn't get an accounting degree. I actually have my master's degree in sports management, and I managed high-end health clubs for a number of years in New York City and Los Angeles. In that process, I became a fairly strong operator, so much so that the groups that I work with would put me to new clubs to say, we need to turn this club around or we need to open this new club. And it was all about driving revenue, managing expenses, creating the best EBITDA margins as possible. So I was always looking at the margins. I was always looking at our P&Ls. I was always looking at how can we improve. And in that process, I realized, wow, I could actually move out of this space of running other people's businesses as an operator and become consultative with business owners or others that are doing the same. So that's really what repositioned me from managing other people's businesses. So happened to be in the fitness and wellness space because that was what I was interested in and still am, but as a younger man. And then of course, moving into how can I work with other business owners to help them be more efficient? And of course, the tax space became very, very interesting to me because my initial transition from the managing health club world to the consultative world was in insurance. And when you look at insurance, particularly with estate tax planning and income tax planning, insurance can actually be a very tax efficient way to shepherd your dollars. So that was just the initial kind of introduction to tax efficiency. And then I realized, wow, there's 75,000 pages of tax code. There's a lot of ways to reduce your taxes if you know where the coupons are. So more than 10 years ago, I basically started my journey in only focusing on tax efficiency and only focusing on helping other tax professionals become better at what they do with their clients.
One of the things that I really appreciate about your story there is the fact that as you were as an operator running those businesses, you saw value in the numbers. It's the language of business. And so clearly you were able to take and turn those businesses around because you focused on what matters, the numbers. It was that quantifiable thing that you could track, measure, and more importantly, improve. So what's curious to me then is to go from that into tax. Most people are inhibited by tax. It's daunting. It's intimidating. but you found it something intriguing. And you're right, there are a lot of things in there in the various codes to benefit from if you dive deep enough into them. And there's strategies that you can implement to legally lower your tax liability. But as a layperson, not being a trained accounting professional initially, you were obviously drawn to that. I'm wondering, was there some type of success or savings that you were initially seeing that intrigued you enough to say, I need to understand and kind of implement or employ this?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, Roger, it really sparked from understanding how insurance, and again, this is not a conversation about insurance at all. It's just basically the starting point of how efficient it can be to utilize and shield your money within properly structured insurance contracts. And then once I started understanding that this has a rollover into estate planning, and estate taxes can be a really big thing depending on what your net worth is upon your demise. So that's what really triggered this. I started seeing so much opportunity here, and I've always looked at, what is the opportunity? So when I'm looking at those numbers as an operator, I'm looking at where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses, how can we, first and foremost, always look at how can we make our strengths stronger, because that's usually an easier path to go. But I also want to shore up how can we make our weaknesses more efficient or reduce our weaknesses. So that was always been my mantra, is like, what is possible and how can we be resourceful? So that's really what pulled me over into tax, is really seeing all these opportunities and seeing there's a lot more out there. Let's find them.
So you see that, you obviously are intrigued by it, but there's a difference between being an operator and being interested in tax and starting a tax business. What caused you to have that entrepreneurial drive to take that leap of faith and, more importantly, focus on these tax saving strategies?
Sure. That's a really good question. I'd say I've always been someone that likes to be of service. So whether it be in the wellness and fitness space, or whether it be in the consultative space of insurance, or whether it be in the consultative space for tax, I just like to put my time where there's the most bang for your buck, so to speak. So when I started looking at, well, how many people are doing what I'm interested in doing, and it wasn't that many, and what kind of impact can be created from that, and it was a lot. So looking at more of my perspective, blue ocean. And I say that because, yes, there are a ton of very successful and very experienced and very, what's the word I'm looking for? And, intelligent, productive accountants, CPAs, et cetera. But the way that they focus their time is, let's put it this way. You only have so much time in a day. And there's compliance work that has to be done. There's preparation work that has to be done. There's filing work that has to be done. There's a lot of hours to just focus on that alone. Well, where do you have time to figure out what is possible, not just what's the norm? So that's where I stepped in and said, there's so many things that are possible above and beyond just the standard accounting practices and tax preparation and filing practices.
Yeah, what you're describing there, and it's something that I really do emphasize, is that there is a distinct difference between tax preparation and tax planning or strategy. One of the things you have to realize is, as an advisor, you can be a lot more creative and employ a number of various strategies that at a tax preparation level are irrelevant. Tax preparation is, it's done, it's already been taken care of. So now we're actually just going to file what happened the previous year. The results are what they are. We're not really able to change too much after the December 31st date. So all of a sudden what we're doing is filing that return and moving on. But in the tax planning or strategy sphere, we're spending a lot more time being creative with the individuals as to what can they do to minimize their tax liabilities. And in that creative space, there's a lot more opportunity to work with high net worth individuals, more importantly, employ these strategies and actually see kind of a value add play as to compensation. So I think there's a big distinction between those two services. And you're clearly saying, I want to focus on that strategy side and be an advisor to my clients. So the question I want to now pose is, you go out there, you start this business, you take that leap of faith, if you will, of starting a business. So that's great. You've got wonderful strategies. You've got something that you feel could make a difference for clients, but you need to have paying clients. You need to actually now have somebody that is willing to pay you for your services. So let's kind of go to the marketing side of this and talk about, how do you go about marketing and finding specific high net worth individuals that can benefit from these types of strategies?
That is a great question. And this is going to be another unorthodox answer because I've never taken the approach of B2C. I've always taken the approach to B2B.
Okay.
Why? Because the person that has the relationship with the income earner that makes an introduction to someone like myself that's going to add value and not step on that person's toes, right? So think about an enrolled agent or a CPA that's preparing and filing taxes, maybe doing some tax planning themselves, but it's harder to do that because they have such little time and bandwidth. So our business has been definitively building relationships with registered investment advisors, which I think this is great for accountants to do as well.
Yeah.
And also CPA firms and enrolled agents. Why? Because there's going to be a percentage of their clients that every year are going to say, I really have to pay that much. And is there anything more I can do? And you want to have an answer for them. So I think marketing wise, when I'm plugging into a CPA firm or an enrolled agent that has 100 clients or a bookkeeping group that works with a lot of clients, and you can have that answer when they ask you, is there anything more I can do? Because that's a painful check that I have to write. We say, well, we do have some solutions and strategies. We actually have a strategic partner that can bring a lot of layers of efficiency that we just don't have the time and bandwidth to offer. So that being said, that's how we've built our business. So we have a somewhat of an overflow of business because, we're farming out what we do, and we don't do bookkeeping. We don't do tax preparation. We don't do tax filing. And also when we save the client 40, 50, 60% in tax and net of their expenses, they're keeping a lot of money. We don't tell them this is how you should invest your money. So that's why RIAs really like us. CPAs and bookkeepers and EAs like us. We don't step on their toes. We just add value, and we just are expanding their practice without them having to master all these additional things at one time.
I appreciate you explaining that business model simply because I think it's one that's very common. I speak regularly of the 3 core accounting services that principally business owners need and expect from the accounting profession. We talk about bookkeeping and accounting, tax planning and preparation, CFO and advisory. And when I bring these up, oftentimes the business owners, those owners of accounting firms, wonder how many of those services am I going to now offer or specialize in? And many choose to simply do only bookkeeping, simply do tax preparation, or they want to move clearly into the tax advisory, much like yourself. And as you silo yourself, you can niche your services and, more importantly, become a specialist in those various places. But then that allows for these partnerships that you're speaking of, this collaboration that you're able to have with firms, where if I work with a bookkeeper, clearly I can come in and offer these tax strategy services and collaborate with them to service their clientele. And there's no real competition because there's 2 distinct services going on and there's not that real overlap. So what you're speaking of is, rather than going directly to the customer, you actually align yourself with various firms that you then partner with. And as you're doing this, you're able to have them identify those high net worth individuals that would benefit from such strategies. And then the 2 of you can collaborate in taking care of that client. So I like that whole philosophy. So my question to you now is, so many of my listeners are accounting professionals. They're hearing this. Why would they actually entertain collaborating rather than actually doing this themselves? What's that distinction that you see in your mind where you're specializing versus them choosing to actually do this for their clients?
That is amazing. I get that question a lot, and this is the answer that I provide. It's time value of money. How much time do you have, and how much bandwidth do you have? So our value is the fact that we can significantly expand their offering virtually overnight without having to worry about, are they worried about their business walking away because this other group that also does tax planning also does bookkeeping and tax preparation, tax filing. So we're really saying we can bolt on this layer of business that might take you 5 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years to master, and it's an additional cost for you. So we're literally saying, let's just plug in and work together to be more successful and more leveraged, so to speak. So we're kind of leveraging what they already have in place, so that we're giving them a time efficient way to offer these advanced strategies. And here's what we do also, Roger. We come in and we will do the work alongside them. So they're never losing. They're always the one driving the ship, right? We're basically the the analysis arm and the presentation arm, but alongside their fiduciary arm or their guidance arm. So they're never losing the tiger by the tail, so to speak.
Well, clearly you're not offering competitive service offerings, so therefore they're not seeing you as a competitor. So all of a sudden, what's happening here is you're complementing what they're doing with the services that you're offering. I'm assuming that they're involved in one way or another with the client through the process, and so they're able to kind of be hands-on. But here's the thing I want to go to as a business model. Clearly, you're explaining how you actually go about marketing your services. How does something get priced as it relates to you've got a person that's trying to implement these tax strategies at a personal level or a business level? You're advising them on these things. How are you actually now invoicing or charging for this? Is it directly through that original accountant CPA that you're working with, or is it directly to the customer? And how do you actually price those services?
Sure. We're very flexible on that. I mean, essentially what we generally do is a consulting type agreement. And the consulting agreement really on the front end is, well, how much analysis work is going to take to produce a custom blueprint or a tax savings blueprint for them? What is the due diligence process that we're walking them through to make decisions? And then when they're ready for implementation, what does that look like? So we generally start with a very small consultation contractor agreement to run the analysis work, and then we do the presentation. From that point forward, it's interesting because in this space, depending on the path that they take, it may be that they have to buy assets. So now we're in a position that we're somewhat like a broker dealer, right? Or an insurance advisor, right? You need insurance. Let's look at these different insurance carriers and let's go ahead and purchase the insurance that you need. And the insurance carrier then compensates someone for bringing them the business. That would be me. It's just I'm not walking them into an insurance carrier. I'm saying this would be an asset or a partnership or a transaction that you can participate in. And this is your net benefit for participation. And there is some tax benefit for doing it as well. And because we walk that client into that relationship, we get compensated. So there's a consultative fee just for doing the work because, they may or may not want to do anything. But of course, we're showing them all the things they can do.
And this is to the customer or is this to the firm?
So the firm can be the decision-making factor. So what we do is based on the firm we're working with, we give them the bandwidth to say, would you like to bring us in as a strategic partner? Would you like us to be your back office?
Okay,
so we really let them choose.
Answer my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get into your mind as a business owner. Clearly, you started this business. You're offering these services. I'm wondering, as you're running the company, how do you actually prioritize things in your mind as to what you're focusing on? What you brought up earlier, a mantra. What's your mantra as you run your company?
I think that the most important thing is to be the service element is to be the highest priority. So our mantra is that when we create a new relationship, that we are always 100% focused and relevant to their needs, and we respond quickly, and our service is superior quality because we are an extension of that service provider. So when they bring us into the fold, whether it be back office or strategic partnership, we need to make sure that our level of quality is exceptional because it's going to be it's going to be the client that we're working with. It's, they're going to be looked upon that as well for how we do. So that's really important. Our mantra is to ultimately highest level of quality and service. So the clients that we work with, which are the tax professionals and bookkeeping groups, et cetera, CPAs, they're actually receiving accolades for all the additional work that's being done for the client at a high level. Yeah.
Interesting. So most times when I'm speaking with clients or business owners, I'm asking about their ideal customer, who that individual is that they're principally working with. And because of your collaborations, I'm sure that before you can get to the customer, you've got to have these great connections, these wonderful firms that you're working with. So it's kind of a twofold question in your sense, because you're a B2B2C type of business model. What is a great collaboration? But more importantly, who is that ideal customer that benefits from these types of tax strategies, the services that you're literally offering? So it's really a two-part question. Who is that great CPA firm that ideally sees value in this type of a collaboration? But more importantly, who are the clients that they're servicing that would really benefit from what it is you do?
Sure, absolutely. I think when it comes to the B2B, it is a shop that is open to planning and open to, what are opportunities that are possible. So if it's a highly conservative operation that really doesn't want to do much more than a business like a mortgage interest deduction, then maybe we're not the best fit for them, because we will be bringing more advanced and more sophisticated strategies that, there are risk profiles to them, but we manage that risk profile. So as far as the B2B, we're looking for groups that, do want to implement what is possible, because they have enough clients on an annual basis that are very irritated with the taxes they pay. And they want to look at something above and beyond the norm, because they've heard, why does this person, or my, a friend of mine, or this high profile individual, why do they pay virtually no taxes and I'm paying all these taxes? So we want to have a group that's ready to say, well, we have answers for you. Doesn't mean you have to do any of them, but at least we can present them to you. So that's the B2B. Now the B2C would be, really, we have solutions for any type of income earner, but for these to start making economic sense, we're really looking at about $400,000 worth of ordinary income or more, right? Because you have to buy the discounts. And if you're buying a discount and you're not in a 32, 35, or 37% bracket, then buying the discount might not make sense, because who likes to buy a 24-cent discount for 22 cents? Yeah. Not too many people. But if you're buying a 37-cent discount at 22 cents, and oh, by the way, you're in the state of California, so you get an extra 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% on top of it, now we're starting to make a lot of sense and a lot of dollars. So that would be a 400,000 or so in ordinary income, meaning that's taxed at ordinary brackets, whether it's passive or active income, or capital gains. Let's say it's somebody that maybe they don't have a lot of income, but they have this appreciated asset and they're going to have a tax bill, let's just say north of 100,000. The tax bill that they're going to write is north of 100,000 on a long-term capital gain. That would be another client that we could help to basically mitigate that capital gain that they're going to experience. And that goes, obviously, the more capital gain or the more ordinary income they have, the more things we can do.
Nice. I like that. All right. So I'm going to get a little bit more personal on this side. We started our conversation explaining your successes as it related to running these various health or fitness centers. You're on the operational side of things. You're doing very well there. You started your business. As a business owner, tell me, what is different for you now that you're running a successful tax advisory firm?
Well, being 100% responsible for the outcome. And also that doesn't just mean the quality of the service you deliver. That means the bottom line, the economics. So I think moving into a completely entrepreneurial role with, because there's one thing about operating someone else's business. You can do a really good job with it and you can actually run it as an operator would. But when it comes to the ultimate loss, you're not on the hook. There's if you overspend on marketing or you didn't budget out correctly, you may lose your job because your owner can't continue the business, but you look for another job. So I would say, going into entrepreneurial space, it was all about, how do I grow this business and maintain, like, every dollar that's spent is going to give me more than $1 of return. That's been my really big focus. And that's really one of the reasons why we chose this B2B to C, because I don't know if, I think that a lot of the people that are listening to this would probably know this. If you're in the tax planning space and you're marketing to the high income earner, well, there's a lot of trust that's needed to gain someone's respect and for them to work with you, particularly when all the CPAs they've worked with before maybe have never said anything about strategy A, strategy B, strategy C. So we said, let's just short circuit that. Let's go to the professionals that know the ins and outs, and they can vet us. And once they vet us and say, well, okay, I understand what you're doing here, 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 and here. And I think that this is actually an appropriate, a viable strategy. Now they can decide who they want to introduce us to. So it really becomes an efficient way to really help everyone succeed.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, but I'm wanting to go a little deeper into you, though. Obviously, going from a W-2 to being now an owner of a business could have been a very big change in your life. And a lot of people make that transition because of the elusive, I want more freedom, more independence, I want to be my own boss. And I want to know, now that you've had your business, are you experiencing those benefits? And are you, as a business owner, happy with the transition that you made?
100%. 100%. And I'll answer the question on a little more personal note, which I think you'll enjoy. And my stepfather was a contractor and real estate broker for 50 years. He used to buy little farms in North Carolina, and he would cut those farms up into like 1 or 2 acre tracts and build kind of nicer custom homes, on a larger plots of land. And I usually, and that was my stepfather. My father, this is kind of like good, rich dad, poor dad. I'm not going to give you a Robert Kiyosaki story, but my
it's a good story, so it's okay.
Yeah, he was a W-2 earner, right? And I was always enamored with my stepdad's ability to just be places at any time he wanted to be. If he wanted to catch a certain game that I was playing for Little League, or if he wanted to go on a trip for the day, and it was like amazing. So that being said, I had to switch over from working a lot of hours for someone else in a W-2 role, even if there's bonuses based off of margin and growth. Great. You're still kind of compensated like an owner, but going to entrepreneurship, it's like you can work. And when you own your own business, you can work any 16 hours of the day you want to. Right? So that's really where I've been. It's like I've really had to appreciate moving over and saying I'm working for myself. But oh, by the way, I thought that I'd have a lot more freedom. Well, I do. I can choose when I work and when I don't work for the most part, except for client-based experiences. But it doesn't mean that I'm cutting my hours back. So I've really, that's where I'm looking at it. As an entrepreneur, I've noticed that in order to be successful to the extent that I've wanted to be thus far, there's been a lot of hours put into it. But as I've learned that, I'm starting to look at, well, how do I scale? How do I create more efficiency? Because I don't really want to work 12 hours a day for the next 15 years. So that's been my experience as an entrepreneur thus far.
Interesting. So with success, oftentimes comes sacrifice. It's that prioritization of things that needs to happen. I'm curious, what do you feel one of the sacrifices you've had to make in order to have the success you're experiencing?
Well, a lot of that has to do with, this is a service-based business. And because I'm on the presentation end of that, especially when we plug into our strategic partners that don't want to have to master this and present it, they just want to understand it and let us do the presentation and due diligence side with their clients. We work with people in Hawaii. We work with people in California. We work with clients all over. And I'm in North Central Florida. So sometimes I have to do, a lot of times, because California is California, and there's a lot of high income earners there, and there's a lot of taxes paid. Well, I'm on presentation calls sometimes at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, because that's the earliest that because the client's a very successful business owner and they needed to, or maybe they're just an executive in Silicon Valley. Well, the earliest I could talk to them was 6 or 7 o'clock their time. So now we're looking at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock my time. So that's been, an example of the grit, that I've had to put into this to make things work. But again, that's with me doing most of the presentations. We're bringing on, I have operations specialists. We have an account director that's coming on board, and we also have another sales arm. So it's not just going to be me presenting, which is nice.
Interesting. And then as it relates to gratitude, what's something that you're grateful for?
Yeah, I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my 2 children. I'm grateful for all the opportunities that our Creator has provided me and our family. I think the experience that we have in this world is a very finite one, and I think we should optimize it So I'm grateful for the time that we have here. So I'm always looking to optimize that, not only for just economic value, but just for, helping others, being of service. So
I
very
like
grateful
that.
for that opportunity.
What would you attribute your success in business, starting the business and so forth, to the support of your spouse?
Well, she's a real trooper. There were times when I made this transition that we were very, very thin, as far as having that, what are our expenses? What are our obligations? And there were times that we were upside down. And that was a challenging moment, challenging times. It's never fun to look at bills that are bigger than your what's in your account, and looking at your pipeline and saying, I don't even know if my pipeline's there. So I would say the average spouse would say, well, you just need to go back to what you were doing. Just get that job that you had, that you paid you well and you did good. And they wanted you to, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she stood next to me and said, well, I trust you. We'll weather the storm. So that was really helpful, because I know that if she wasn't confident that I could get through that area of growth, or getting from, negative to positive, then I probably would have gone back to working for someone else. And of course that would have been fine. I would have made whatever it was I would have made, but I would have had that income ceiling, and we no longer have that, which is a beautiful thing.
Interesting. I find a lot of people who are successful do have that individual who's behind them, supporting them, encouraging them, motivating them. And oftentimes that spouse is perhaps that one thing that keeps us going. So I think that's very important. So you mentioned your children. I'm curious, what are you hoping your children learn as they watch you run and operate a successful business, but more importantly, just be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I've done my best to instill in them good practices. Obviously, faith is really important to us in our family, so that's first and foremost. But outside of that, how do they shepherd their activities and how they shepherd their money? So whenever they're doing entrepreneurial activities, I say there's a lot of things that need to be done around this house. Some of them would be, they would be something that you're expected to do as just to contribute to the household. But some of these things are above and beyond. So they start asking me questions like, what can I do to earn a little bit more money, right? Because they want to buy something. So I start giving them ideas, and then they come back to me and say, can I, clean up the hedges, or can I do? And I say, yeah, absolutely. So they're starting to kind of look at how can they create opportunity for themselves. And of course, once they earn that money, I'm always like, okay, where's your tithe, right? That's your first. And also, where's your savings? So tithe and savings, and then everything else is whatever's remaining after that is what pays your bills and gives you money to do things that you enjoy. But of course, they don't have any bills just yet. So
I love it. I love it. No, the fact that you're having them ask these questions are clearly showing that they're becoming aware of what money is and how to go about earning it and seeing the value in it. So those are very important things. So my next question is related partly to the time of year. We're recording this near Independence Day, but at the same time, also because of your service in the Marine Corps, I'm curious, what does freedom mean to you?
Wow, loaded question. But I would say, the ability to make decisions and take risk without being inhibited. And when you say inhibited, obviously freedom, particularly in the business world, is how much oversight and how much regulation do you have? Now, of course, regulation is good. Don't get me wrong, but the ability to go out and create a business and be resourceful, come up with new ideas, and offer them to the community at large. I think that's freedom, right? So now you don't have someone telling you what to do or what you can do. You have complete open architecture, so long as what you're doing is legal and obviously hopefully provides a service and a value to someone. That is true freedom, because I think that creates the entrepreneurial mindset that a lot of people in the United States have, right? You think, look at these businesses, you're like, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Or I can't believe they're actually profiting with that. That's amazing.
That's very true. So my last question for you is regarding your younger self. If you were to go back in time and actually give some advice to that operator who was considering starting his own business, more importantly, specializing in tax advisory services, what advice would you give them as a young budding entrepreneur?
I would say have a source of income that you can rely on, even if it's a certain amount of savings or a certain amount of work that you're willing to do at any hour of the day, to make sure that when you make that leap from working for someone else to yourself, that you're not 100. I know a lot of times people's like, you say you start a business, you just have to take the leap of faith, right? Leave all the income behind and jump into this business and make it work. Okay, that puts a lot of stress on people. I'd say you have to plan the transition and make sure that you have some source of income that, and you reduce your expenses as much as possible. So you have to pay the price, pull back as much as you can on your lifestyle and have some type of income stream that you can manage while you build your revenues in your business. Otherwise, if you don't have a loving and supportive spouse, you might lose that spouse, right? So I always say, don't take that huge jump and say, I'm just going to figure it out and I don't know where my income is going to come from. Retract as much as you can. Be as low a low spender as possible, and have some metric of income that can at least get you 80 or 90% of to your number, and then slowly build. And as soon as you can drop away from those other things, drop them, and then you can grow fast. So that would be because I, didn't do that a couple of times and had to go back to work. And then, of course, I said, this is the last time I'm ever going to break out on my own, and I'm never going to go back to work for someone else. And that was because I had actually failed a couple times, and then I planned to make sure I have this baseline that will be okay until I get the revenues to a certain number.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of the things that I've found is many of the individuals I work with who have started successful businesses basically see their beginnings as a supplemental income. They had a day job, some steady income, but they were not satisfied or financially wanted to supplement it. And so what they ended up doing is taking on bookkeeping or tax clients on weekends, weeknights. And as they were doing so, they finally got to a point where they could make that leap because there was a little bit of a nest egg. And more importantly, they had at least some traction with what they were doing in their business to then replace what might have been that primary income. That's very common. And it's one of the things that I think is less stress induced. Now, many people aren't afforded that luxury. They oftentimes are in a position where they do lose that primary income. And this is the replacement. And this is how they're going to rebound, because they could either remain unemployed and basically wait until somebody sees value in them, or they can say, today, I am employed. Why? Because I started a business and I'm going to hire myself first. And so all of a sudden you're in business and you're off and running, and all that energy you're going to put into finding employment, you're going to put into growing your own client list. And so everybody's story is different and everyone has something unique that they offer. But I like the sound advice of cutting your expenses. That unnecessary expense that you can get away with, it can eliminate a stress that really shouldn't be there while you're up there trying to start the business and get things off the ground. So great advice. So Mark, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really appreciated your insights. Clearly the tax advisory work that you're doing is appealing. One of the things that I want to leave with is some tax advice. I'm sure a lot of us are frustrated with the taxes we're paying. I'm sure we all wish we were keeping more legally. So I'm curious, do you have one piece of tax advice that you would offer to anyone and everyone?
Absolutely. I'll just throw a little nugget out there, which is kind of fun. This is a fun conversation. A lot of times people think that being charitable, they understand that there are tax efficiencies with that. So just an idea to toss around, you don't always have to donate $1 of cash. You can donate a tangible asset. Well, that changes the game a bit. So, one strategy that people might think about employing is donating a non-cash asset. Why? Because the non-cash asset has a appraised value. Well, what if you can actually acquire a non-cash asset for a substantially lower cost than its current appraised value? Well, now you are onto something, because you can get a $1 deduction for, say, 25 cents. And if you're in a 37 to 50% tax bracket, well, a $1 deduction gives you 37 to 50 cents of tax savings. And if you purchase that for 25 cents, it makes a lot of sense. So just a little fun nugget in tax planning. That's just one little avenue we look at, and they don't have to go find those significantly discounted assets. We find them for them. So we say, which assets would you like to buy at a discount, and subsequently donate?
I like that. No, that's a good one. I appreciate it. All right. Well, Mark, this has been a great thing. One of the things I'd like to offer to our listeners is Mark has actually provided a way for you to take advantage of a free consultation with him, and perhaps even discuss a possible partnership where there's a collaboration for you to not only service more your clients and provide this additional tax strategy service, but at the same time get compensated as well for that type of collaboration. So if you'd like to, check out what it is in the episode description that you can do to schedule some time with Mark to discuss what does tax advisory and more or less strategy type services look like, and how you can perhaps partner and align and provide these to your current client list. So take advantage of that today. In addition, one of the offers that I'd like to really encourage you to take advantage of is in the episode description. We speak of a book called Your Strategic Accountant. It's here we talk about those three core accounting services that I mentioned earlier. These are the three core accounting services that businesses need from us, one of which is tax advisory and planning. So if we can actually focus on these three core services, one of the things that we can do is ultimately take care of our clients and meet them where they are needed. Now, one of the other things that I want to encourage you to take advantage of is a course that is called the Turnkey Business Plan for Accounting Professionals. It's there we talk about these three core services and what it is you can be offering as it relates to them, and getting paid for them, and what that pricing might look like. So if you're interested in learning how to market these services, price these services, check out the Turnkey Business Plan. And then lastly, as an invite, there is an Entrepreneur's Challenge that we're issuing to all business owners for you to participate in. So go to the episode description and sign up for the Entrepreneur's Challenge. It's actually online as well at universalaccounting.com. It's there you can find out what it is you can do in the coming 90 days to work on yourself personally and professionally. So take advantage of this Entrepreneur's Challenge. Now, the other thing I want to do is summarize a little bit of our conversation. Really enjoyed Mark kind of painting the stage, as you will, going from being an operator for the fitness companies to starting his tax business. Clearly, it was a transition simply because of the fact that he wasn't formally trained in accounting, bookkeeping, and tax, which really does give us inspiration as to, if we're interested, yes, we can go out and acquire these skills and become experts in these various areas. And he did exactly that. Now, in offering these tax planning services, he's been able to collaborate with accounting firms. And he spoke of why, from a marketing point of view, that he has found that to be the most efficient way for him to grow his business, to not necessarily go directly to the clients, but more importantly, find these collaborations with other tax firms, CPA firms, and so forth, that he can actually align with to best serve their clients, and in a collaborative way, actually service them best. So I thought that was a great conversation, only because I like always discussing marketing. How are we growing our businesses and getting paid for what we're worth? The other thing that I thought was very helpful is we were starting to talk about his business, not only just why he started it, but how it went about. And he spoke of his spouse being very supportive in that process, that he realized that it was with her constant support he was able to move forward confidently. And then he spoke of his children as well, that they're learning obviously the value of money, and they're seeing basically the work ethic that he's instilling. That's one of the things that I think is so valuable here, is the examples we're setting for our families. The last thing that we were also able to talk about is the things for which he's grateful for, and what freedom means. I think those are two valuable things that we need to consider. What are we grateful for? What are those things that we're considering as we're going throughout our daily lives that keep us in a positive mindset, that we can see around us that we're blessed with? And then as it relates to freedom, being able to recognize the liberties that we're afforded, and more importantly, taking advantage of those things that we can do. Because as he pointed out, it's amazing when people start businesses, it's oftentimes, why didn't I think of that first? And I think that's something that we ought to consider. So wonderful conversation today. Mark, what would you like to leave as a final thought?
Final thought is just to really take the bull by the horns. And when you see an opportunity, seize it. But ultimately, as we talked about before, have your baseline plan. So you're not overdoing it. That bull's not too big. Take the bull by the horns, but have your baseline plan to ensure that you can keep holding on to those horns until you finally master it. So that would be my last word of the day.
Perfect. Well, Mark, thank you again for being on the show. I appreciated the conversation. I was excited to discuss a little bit about the tax advisory side of our business model, simply because of the fact that I think that's a wealth of opportunity and something that we can definitely do in a more creative space. So thank you for that. As for my listeners, if you haven't already subscribed, I want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast. Definitely are interested in having you listen each and every week when we bring on the show the experts, individuals in the accounting space that have gone off and done what we're trying to do to have the premier accounting firm in our area. So take advantage of this opportunity to subscribe now to the episode, to the show, and get the episodes each and every week when they come out. As for the past episodes, I'd like to point out that at universalaccounting.com, you can go and find in the navigation on the site the podcast section where we've compiled all the highlights. These are basically playlists that we've put together of various episodes that are on topic based on marketing, selling, pricing, various things that you may be wanting to dive deeper into or perhaps even struggling with. Here you can go and play a binge list of various guests that we've had on the show where they share with us their insights and actionable items that they can actually give us suggestions to implement in our business to address those specific things. So go listen to those playlists and binge listen those as you see fit. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference. It is an event for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. We'd love to have you join us. Register and attend in May the annual conference, GrowCon. Why? Because it's there that we hear from the experts off of the stage what it is that we can be doing in our business to work on it, whether it be marketing related, growth, whether it's servicing our clients, taking care of them, increasing lifetime value, or working efficiently and profitably, those back office things that we can be using, technology and so forth, so that we're actually effectively doing the work. All of these things are addressed from the stage, from the experts. But at the same time, as we've been discussing today, it's also a place that you can meet your peers and collaborate, find out what it is they're doing, learn from them as to their successes. But at the same time, as we've discussed today, find places that you can actually collaborate to better service your clients. And it's with those connections you can go home and actually become the premier accounting firm in your area. And then lastly, it's obviously the staff here at Universal Accounting, those individuals who are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal. So get your ticket today. Go to universalaccounting.com, and there in the navigation, you'll find the information regarding GrowCon, and I look forward to seeing you there. Lastly, if you have any questions regarding this, other principles that we've discussed, perhaps the programs we offer, such as becoming a professional bookkeeper, professional tax preparer, profit and growth expert, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care and be safe out there. Mark, that was awesome.
Hey, thank you, Roger.
You're welcome. Yeah, so what you're going to do now is go to that chat and you're going to take that script and I'm going to have you record right now that promo piece.
Yep. Let me just go to the chat. So let me just practice real quick.
Oh,
so it would be, this is Mark Myers. It was phenomenal to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed, how to
whatever you want to say it was.
Yeah. We discussed ways to increase your business with advanced planning in a turnkey way. I invite you to listen and join us, right? So,
yep. Okay. There you go.
So you want me to say it now, just like
just like you did.
Okay. Hi, this is Mark Myers, and it was amazing to record with Roger today an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed how to leverage other individuals and other groups to grow your business. Let me redo that one. I want to try to keep that simple. I'm getting a little too out of hand. We discussed.
You're doing good. Go ahead and start at the top. Just do it natural.
Okay. Hi there. My name's Mark Myers. It was phenomenal and fun to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm today. And we discussed ways to grow your practice and plug into other individuals to help you do advanced tax planning without having to take a year or two to get to know how to do advanced tax planning. So I invite you to join and listen to the podcast now.
Perfect. I love it. All right. So here's what's going to happen. Brian's going to take that clean